Of all the preseason storylines, we're going to go bookending here because we started the show by me apologizing for being off about the Bills winning the division. I said they weren't going to win the division, and they won it with 5 weeks to spare. So way off on that one. Mea culpa. I was in the category, though, of needing to see it to believe it on Russell Wilson. And we didn't see it through 6 weeks because he wasn't playing, because he wasn't healthy. And every single time Mike Tomlin would be asked about his quarterback situation while Justin Fields was playing and starting and winning 2/3 of his games, 4 of 6. He went 4-2. Every single time he was talking about Russ, he's just like, yeah, well, I'm not talking about Russ because he's not available anyway to practice. And it was one of those, I'll be honest with you, ways of, in many corners, including this one, thinking he's just using the fact that he's not healthy as a fig leaf for talking about a situation you didn't want to talk about. Because when you talk about your starting quarterback situation, that leads to issues. Or if your starting quarterback situation isn't settled, that's a problem. And Tomlin was quite literally being straight up that Russell wasn't under consideration because he just wasn't available to be considered. And they start 4-2, and he pushes the button to switch the spots. And it's worked out like a charm. And it's not just because the defense is balling out, and it's not because the run game is letting Russ do less. Russ was legit in Cincinnati on Sunday, cooking
fire
like it was prime Seattle days. Yeah. He was absolutely doing the things that he did in Seattle that put him on a path to the Hall of Fame. That got totally derailed by the way things ended in Seattle and then what happened in Denver. And he is cut by Denver, the largest dead cap player in the history of the National Football League, just threw for 400 yards in Cincinnati to put the Steelers in the 9-win category and now a better game ahead of Baltimore, who they've already beaten.
Black and gold. Here we go.
The one moment that caused me to go like sort of Rick Dalton gif, there it is. There's the Russ from Seattle. There's the guy. Was a moment in the game, third quarter, second half, where Cincinnati's answering, right? And they're giving up points defensively that they aren't usually giving up defensively. And the Steelers did allow a season-high 38 points after allowing less than 17 points per game through the first 12 weeks of the season. That's fourth fewest in the NFL. Russ was being rushed out of the pocket. And in the last couple of years, he would just take off. Fold up, take off. Flight instead of fight. And Russ stepped up, stepped through the hole, and looked down the field and fired one on the run perfectly to a wide-open Freiermuth for a touchdown. And I'm like, that's it. Right there. Rick Dalton gif, pointing at the screen. That's the Russ we haven't seen in forever. Playing free, freelancing when he needs to, extending the play, but not giving up on the play. I'll say it. I know he wasn't hit at the time. That's the Ben Roethlisberger type stuff. But it's also the Russ stuff where you can't get him off the field and you can't keep him in the pocket. And if he gets out of the pocket, he's more dangerous. Dangerous. Wilson showed up for the Steelers and is showing up for the Steelers. And I know they went through that stretch where they didn't have any touchdowns and they lost the snow game. But you got to give it up. 520 total yards of offense for Russ. Most points in a road game by the Steelers since 2000 in Cincinnati. Most total yards in a game for Pittsburgh since 2018, back when Big Ben was doing it. You got to give it up. this team can not only win the division, they're in first place. This team can, if they play like this with TJ Watt and Nate Herbig are coming out with strip sacks, and defensively, I know they gave up all those points, but if they're being timely and doing their thing, I mean, they can go to the Super Bowl. For real.
No doubt.
Tomlin had this to say about the dub yesterday.
It's always a challenge. The intimacy of these divisional relationships. We know them, they know us. But I just thought our group, smiled in the face of it, particularly Russ. It's the first time for him going through this AFC North football. And, man, I thought he acclimated himself to it well today. He put himself squarely in the history of these series and this series with that performance today, man, and we're thankful for it.
Most first-half passing yards in his career, 257. Second most passing yards in a game in his career, 452 he had in 2017 when he was cooking against Houston. Third game with 400 or more passing yards in his career. First ever on the road, 2024 Russell Wilson. Now I believe it. I'm seeing it. Now I'm believing it.
The best thing about us, though, is it's about us.
Damn straight it is. And guess what? Tomlin's doing his Coach of the Year stuff, too. Because George Pickens is Russell's, DK? He's his, if you want to go way back in the day, I mean, he always needs those physical receivers, or he utilizes them very well. And Pickens now leads the NFL with receptions of 30 or more yards. He's got 12 of them. But he had two more silly mistakes, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. One that set them back so much they had to wind up setting for a field goal. That was the one where he, pointed, he says, for a first down, but it was in the form of a
pew-pew
of a gun. And they thought he was given a gun formation, and they flagged him for it. And that one wound up being an actual rare Boswell miss. Nice. So Tomlin's not going to, he is not treating that lightly at all. He had this to say about his stud must-have wide receiver yesterday.
Man, it's an emotional game, man. These divisional games are big. He got a target on his back because he's George. He understands that. But he's got to grow up. He's got to grow up in a hurry.
That's right. He's got to grow up. He's got to grow up.
Yeah,
not wrong.
Hey, it's going to snow, and you're going to get flags because people are looking at you. So grow up. Mature.
I've said this last few months. He will make the greatest catch in the world, and then he'll just do something so
again, that's
aggravating.
When we had Tomlin on a couple of years ago, when Pickens was beginning to start showing special things, he said he keeps talking to George about doing the routine things routinely, and the things he needs to be more routine is just bottling up whatever he feels he needs to uncork, like kicking a football into the stands, and he's going to get fined for that, I believe, after a touchdown. And the Steelers next up, man, they have got a lead in the AFC North to protect, and they have got a loss to Cleveland to avenge. Before they are at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, and then home for Kansas City, the dreaded Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday schedule for teams playing on Christmas Day. They are going to be put through the crucible. They may not win the division, but they have shown that they can actually win the division and the conference, and they can prove it. And they could even prove it that they can win the entire damn shooting match when they visit Philadelphia with a quarterback that is, once upon a time, cooking. Now he's smelting, as we know, in Pittsburgh. And Tomlin is doing Coach of the Year stuff, and the Steelers are back. And so is Russ. Unreal. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.